All right, I've been saying for a while that I was going to do a YouTube video, but I've been dragging my feet. So I figured I would start today with these three 54 pattern Great Eastern Cutlery knives. These knives are special factory orders. Commonly you see that written as SFO, and what that means is that these companies, two companies, DLT Trading for these two knives and Mayer and Grosch for this ebony knife here, they spoke with Great Eastern Cutlery and they commissioned these knives to their specifications. On the right here you have a Burlap micarta 54. You can see it's a highly polished micarta. Here you have smooth Appaloosa bone, and this knife here, I'm not an expert, but what it looks like is that they put brown dye on plain undyed smooth white bone, and from there they just kind of wiped it off and let the random pattern appear. And here you have the Mayer and Grosch, which is in ebony wood, and this is actually a reproduction of a knife that they made way back. I believe it was in, actually I'm gonna look in here and I'll tell you exactly. This knife was made in 1937, and I'll show you that ad in a minute. Now this knife here is the only two blade knife of the bunch. I'm gonna move some of this stuff out of the way so I can get a little bit clear view. I'll show you one thing before I do that. If you look at these tubes, anytime there's a special factory order, the company that commissioned that special factory order, their name is right here on the tube. And then on the top, you have the first two numbers are the pattern 54, 2, which is the, lost my focus. 2, which is the type of main blade, which in this case is a spear blade. 1 is the number of blades, and then 17 is the year 2017. So it's the same thing here. You can see smooth Appaloosa bone, 54 2 117. Again, 54 is the pattern, 2 is the style of main blade, which is spear, 1 is the number of blades, and then 17 is the year that the knife was produced. And you can see again here, this is a DLT Trading special factory order. And here, Mayer and Grosch decided to do this a little bit differently. My assumption is this is how the knife originally came way back, minus, stickers like this, of course. There's the original model number, and you'll see that model number here on their ad. Let's flip it over. You can see here, same as model number 0400. I think that's coming out. And you can see way back in 1937, this knife you could have bought 3 of these knives for $4.20. Now, this knife here is probably my favorite knife, but if you follow my Instagram page and you know anything about the knives that I carry or use, I like micarta, especially in traditional knives. Now this micarta is a little bit more polished than I would usually prefer. However, I'm not really one to modify my knives a lot, so I haven't taken any type of steel wool or scouring pad or anything of that nature to the covers to rough them up. The oak leaf shield is a signature shield from DLT Trading, and it is on all of their knives that they commission. You can see here, as I mentioned earlier, this is a spear blade. My hand is roughly 4 inches across, so this blade is probably 3 3/4 inches. What I like about this specific spear point is it has a very fine point, which is good for picking splinters or just digging anything out, making holes in materials, things of that nature. Now this one is finished in the Northfield trim, so it does have a shiny blade, a polished blade, and you can see that I have cut a few stakes with this. There is a patina developing there. The pull, I would say that the first half of the pull is probably a 6, and the second half is probably a 7.5 or an 8. It's definitely not a nail breaker for me, but I know for some they prefer blades that are more of a 5 pull, and I don't mind that on a smaller blade. These knives also have a half stop, which is pretty good, and they snap shut very well. So that's the Burlap micarta. Brass liners, nickel silver bolsters, single line, the long pull here instead of the nail nick. Now I also, if you follow me, you know that I'm a fan of the nail nick over the long pull. However, Northfield knives tend to have long pulls, and long pulls seem to be more popular. Here, this is the same exact knife, other than, like I said, this is smooth Appaloosa bone, which, like I said, my guess, and I'm not an expert, my guess is that they took plain undyed bone, they applied brown dye for some period of time, and they wiped off the excess, leaving this random pattern, which is pretty nice, pretty nice. I do like the pattern myself. Again, nickel silver bolsters, front and rear, and that oak leaf shield. The pull again on this one might be more of a 5 right there, and I'd say maybe a 7 for the second half of the pull. And you don't have to pull it with the long pull the entire way. You can pinch the blade once you get it halfway. There's not enough blade to pinch it while it's closed, but you can pinch it once it's at the halfway point. So you can see again, really good half stop, nice snap shut. And then finally you have this model, which, as I mentioned, is the only 2-blade model that I have. You can see here each blade rides on its own spring. These blades also have half stops as well. You have this blade here, which is your main blade, and this motto here is a trademark for Mayer and Grosch that dates back to their beginning. And Mayer and Grosch actually were 2 guys that used to work for Gerber and Co. as wholesale hardware salespeople, and eventually they formed their own company around 1877. From there, it changed hands with a few different family members. I believe a son-in-law initially, and ultimately it has fairly recently been reopened with 2 other owners, and they're not blood related from my understanding. However, they have decided to reopen the company and continue to produce these knives in the same fashion that Mayer and Grosch intended. And those names are Roger Cunningham and Ken Mundhank. I hope I pronounced that right. Again, that's just their trademark. This knife, I would say, is pretty similar in pull to the other knives. There's a little scratch there, but you know, I use my knife, so I'm not too concerned. You can see here, this one is the spear blade like the other ones. Again, the pull is very similar to the other knives. Long pull on both blades. Half stop. Nice femoral shield. The blades are very well centered. The transitions on all of these knives are excellent. The 54s were really some of the best knives that I feel as though Great Eastern Cutlery has put out recently, and they really show the quality that Great Eastern Cutlery is capable of. I'll put all 3 knives out for one last showing, and then I'll end this video, and hopefully I provided some information here that was helpful. Again, like I said, this is my first video. I'm going to try to get into doing a few videos, but you know, who knows how things will go. So there's a closer view of the 3 knives.